What's up, guys? What of course you'll be seeing today is a breakdown and review of the exotic sidearm in Destiny called Dreg's Promise. To get it, what you'll have to do is undergo a multi-step process or an exotic bounty before you're actually awarded it. And of course, before I break down the review of the weapon, I'll tell you how to get the weapon. First step is to beat the level 35 version of the Prison of Elders, specifically beating the final boss, Skolas. He drops an Elder Cipher at random if you beat him. There's no guarantee of getting it, but if he does, you'll have to go to the next step, obviously. Which, when you do get it, return to Varix. He'll present you with 3 weapon choices to choose from, with Dreg's Promise being one of them. At this point, you're not choosing your weapon, though, so if you choose the wrong one or you're given an overview, it doesn't matter. He's just giving you an overview. The next step is to acquire a Queen's Cipher from one of the Queen's chests in a 32, 34, or 35 version of the Prison of Elders. You're going to need to get a treasure key to open the large chest at the end of the run, which is basically the Queen's Cipher chest. When you get the Queen's Cipher, bring it to Varix. He'll make you wait a few days or a few hours for the next step of your bounty, which is actually, I don't know, it's quite bizarre, but you'll have to do it regardless. There's no way to tell how long it actually takes, so just periodically check for the green exclamation point icon next to the reef to see if your bounty's ready. Next step after that, and the last step, is to get 1,000 points by killing bosses in the Prison of Elders. Mini bosses in the level 28 version are worth 75. The 32 version bosses are worth 200. 34 bosses are worth 350, and Skolas himself is worth 450. Basically, if you're not starting your week fresh and doing the 32, 34, and 35 together, which would give you the combined 1,000, easiest way I find is to rerun the level 34 strike 3 times if you're unwilling to wait for the next weekly refresh and to do all of them all at once. It'll net you 1,050, which is well more than enough. Next up, the review. This weapon is officially titled a sidearm. That's not to be confused with a hand cannon, of course. Because of this distinction, it's not a hard-hitting weapon per shot. In fact, as we get to the stats in a second in the preliminary review, it actually hits very lightly per shot. So that tells you quite a bit about the weapon's strengths and weaknesses automatically right off the bat, just using sheer logic. But I'll break it down further, of course. Statistically, the gun itself starts with a max 365 base damage. Its fire rate's 100. It has an impact rating of only 5, a range of 41%, a stability rating of 79, which is quite good, an even better reload percentage of 86, and a magazine size which starts at 18. The weapon also fires in 3-round bursts per trigger pull, so that's something to keep in mind as we go forward. So on preliminary looks, stability and reload speeds are a big plus for this weapon. The 1,000 fire rate, which actually looks fantastic, is actually a little bit misleading because it will be hitting for very low damage per shot for balance purposes, so its range and overall utility will be limited. Burst fire makes this max fire rate actually more controllable, so you can specialize in that medium range, but that means with the delay between the bursts, because it's burst fire, don't expect to be using it in close range at all, and with the high fire rate, don't expect to be using it at long range either. So that just leaves the perk as to whether this weapon's actually viable and how much utility it has, which I'll talk to now. In terms of PvP damage output, it hits for 40 per body shot, so because of the 3-round burst, it hits for a max of 120 if you hit all of them, and 50 on headshots, or 150 per burst if you manage to hit all of them. With regard to the skill tree, all Dreg's Promises are the same because they're exotics. They all deal arc damage. You have an always active perk called Reserve Ammo, which allows you to always have ammo on spawn, and this is actually, if you choose to use it in PvP, the more useful area you'll find this particular perk. You have 3 clear options in terms of scope. Soft Ballistics, which cuts down on recoil but also reduces impact. CQB Ballistics, which greatly reduces recoil but dramatically hits range. And lastly, my choice, Aggressive Ballistics, which gives more but more controllable recoil. It cuts into range slightly but enhances impact per shot, which means if you choose to use it in PvP, it will hit slightly harder, but more importantly, it produces controllable, more predictable recoil. So the logic dictates if recoil is more controllable, figuring out that pattern and getting used to the muscle memory means it can be controlled easily, and you'll keep that additional damage that Aggressive Ballistic gives. So it's the best of both worlds once you get used to the recoil pattern. When breaking down the skill tree further, the first perk is called Grave Robber, which gives the chance to refill the magazine on melee kills with the weapon equipped. This is a unique but non-influential perk, as you won't be meleeing much in endgame content in PvP or PvE, and in higher level like Trials of Osiris PvP, you won't be probably meleeing that much either. Outside of endgame, it actually comes in quite handy. The next 3 perks which you'll have a choice over are Snapshot, which allows you to aim much faster and may come in handy in PvP, or in PvE against large groups of enemies attacking from different angles, like Acolytes come to mind. Field Scout's the next one, which increases the ammo capacity by only 3 or 1 burst, so I wouldn't particularly use this one. And Perfect Balance, which cuts down recoil. So personally, of the 3, I would probably choose Snapshot or Perfect Balance, more leaning toward Perfect Balance, but your playstyle will sort of dictate your choice, of course. Perfect Balance mixed with aggressive ballistics actually has great synergy. More predictable and controllable recoil with the additional damage that aggressive ballistics offers, with Perfect Balance cutting that recoil down even further. The last perk is Shock Rounds. These rounds are quite fun to use. Enemies get obliterated in a very similar field to Vestian Dynasty when you get kills with the weapon, and in addition, the rounds ricochet off hard surfaces. The perk also enhances target acquisition. Lastly, it has a hidden perk, or if you will, it's part of the shock rounds, allowing you to shoot and kill explosive enemies such as Shanks and Thralls without triggering their explosion. Additionally, it prevents Vex snipers from going into their shields, so it has utility on some form of content in the game. With regard to my overall impressions in PvE, it's more fun to use. It's a fun gun to use, and if you prioritize fun factor over a min-max or best weapon for the best scenario, this weapon is for you. It doesn't hit hard per burst, as stated before, but the fire rate is as high as possible, and the bursts make it more consistent in terms of controlling accuracy. And additionally, in terms of accuracy, this and Vestian Dynasty, the only 2 sidearms in the game, have high aim assist, so that's another positive, or again, another negative if you don't like aim assist like me. The negatives of the weapon to me are that it doesn't put out enough damage to be a special slot worthy of a choice. It's outclassed by many other arc weapons that don't use an exotic slot, especially sniper rifles. And leading right into that, it uses up your exotic slot. Additionally, the perks are particularly special and don't really serve to dramatically increase the utility of the weapon in all content, so that's something to bear in mind. The shots do have travel time, meaning it isn't a hit scan weapon, so you have to account for where the bullets are going to go. And lastly, the range make it a middleman weapon at best, like stated before. It's not going to be very good in close range, nor is it going to be very good at long range. So with that in mind, it is not a weapon I would bring into endgame content at all. I'd keep it away from the Prison of Elders, Skolas, and even like higher end content like in PvP like Iron Banner or Trials of Osiris, unless you really want to test how good you are. But for Arc Nightfalls, patrols, bounties, and other content, it's actually quite fun to use. In PvP, as basically just stated before, it's strictly a medium range weapon if you choose to use it, meaning you will get killed versus someone using a shotgun in close range, and you will get obliterated at long range by sniper rifles, scout rifles, pulse rifles, hand cannons, etc. It's very situational, and mixed with the fact that it takes your exotic slot, I would not use it in PvP, that to be blunt. If you're a min-max, get the best out of every single situation and best utility for each weapon type. Don't use it at all in the Crucible. So yeah, overall, to continue the trend with a lot of these weapons from Elder Ciphers, if you value fun factor and utility over min-maxing, go nuts. You'll have a blast. If you prefer the min-max and best weapon type to max time to kill, etc., don't use this weapon. That's it. Have a good one.